I almost wasn't gonna do this video because I realized once I got back into my car, I left my normal car camera that I use at my desk at home. Since I was uploading my video yesterday, I forgot to put it back in my car. But you know, a little different video here than I normally do. And well, I had to open a savings account. You know, in case you haven't noticed, I'm using my phone because I don't have the camera mounted to my window. And anyway, so I had to go to the bank today, open up a savings account. My wife and I, we agreed that we need to have a savings, because when you have money in a checking account, it's easy to spend money on little things or whatever, because you see the money's there. Oh yeah, we got this money, let's just go, buy something or whatever. And it's easier to maintain it if the money's not there, if you just keep, kind of keep it at one level. So we've been talking about this for a while, my wife and I, and I'm like, all right, you know what, let's get a freaking savings account. Let's go ahead and do this. So went in there. They're open on Saturdays. And I talked to a young man who handled the account. Now the other issue I had to go there mainly for, believe it or not, was me and Frank, as you know, Frank Tank at work, we're heading over to get some barbecue. I went to pay for what I owed. I had a gift card, and there was like $1 something owed left after that. So I'm like, all right, here's my debit card, use that. She said, oh, sorry, it's declined. I tried it twice, it was declined twice. So like, oh, there's definitely enough money in there for this, for sure, what that was going on, So I used my credit card to pay for it. I look online, I don't see any suspicious transactions. So I get an email later that evening from the bank saying, you need to call us about some suspicious transactions. So I was like, okay, figure. So I call, sure enough, card's been compromised. I'm assuming it might have been one of these damn scammer things at the gas station. One of these gas stations had it, who knows? God knows. And I live near Tampa, Florida. And they're like, oh, were you, in Claremont, Florida at 11 a.m. yesterday? I'm like, no, I was at work at that time. Okay. So they shut it down, had to go get a new card. So that's when I figured, well, my wife says, well, you're going there anyways to get a new card. Let's just open a savings account while you're there. We can finally do it. I'm like, all right. So I did. So I'm heading back now from there, which I know you're going to see this video Sunday along with Uncle Pete, but today is Saturday. We're about to get ready to go to Uncle Pete's. And like I said, I'm going to do an interview with him. He's 97 years old. He's going to have a very interesting story to tell about his life and the economy, the world, the United States, everything from his point of view. It'll be an interesting video. But so I'm talking to this young man, well, younger than I am anyways. I think he said he was like 26 years old. And I wish I could remember how the exact conversation started. As a matter of fact, I think I know. Because I said, yeah, it's time to open a savings account. I said, I do these videos on YouTube, and at the end of the month we get a check, from YouTube, from the ads that play on the videos and stuff. And my wife's been, kind of bugging me for a while, like, that we should do this. That way the money that comes in from YouTube, we just kind of put it in a separate account, in a savings account. So that's why I'm here, partially, for the other reasons, the debit card problem. So he's like, oh, well, what do you do, what do you do videos on? Well, like, what kind of stuff? So I start telling him. Next thing I know, we're having this, in-depth conversation about from Bitcoin, precious metals, silver, gold, the Bilderberg group. Well, in fact, he brought that name up, Bilderberg, the Bilderbergers. We started talking about the Rothschilds and the central banks, the 1988 cover of the magazine of the Rothschild. The stuff that I talk about in my videos, why I try to protect people, with precious metals and even Bitcoin. And he's like, yeah, but isn't, even Bitcoin, though, it's not really, it's at least the dollar, it's backed by the government, at least the faith in the government, but Bitcoin, that's not really backed by anything, is it? I said, no. I said, that's scary. I said, and I've talked about this at length. In some respects, it's worse than the dollar, because at least a dollar you can print it out and go to the store and have it in your hand. It's tangible. With Bitcoin, it's relying on the internet being online, which, I mean, again, you wouldn't think the internet's got to go down. But if power went out in your area or something, you know, you might be hard-pressed to try to use a Bitcoin to buy something, not to mention most places, you know, massively, most places don't accept Bitcoin. Very few do. But, you know, he brought up a good point, and I said, yeah, you know, you're right. I said, but however, it can be argued, you know, considering Bitcoin was $2, it's now $1,200. And I said, by the way, I follow this thing called the Webbot. So I started talking about that and how accurate it's been with Bitcoin. And we started talking, you know, and he mentioned something about Snap. And I was like, oh, yeah, Snapchat. I'm like, oh. I was like, that kind of reminds me of, you know, Tesla. I said, you know, they haven't made a profit in like 10 years. And yet they're massively valuable. Their stock's like $300 right now. He's like, I know, he's like, I actually got some. I bought some a while back when it was like 190. And I'm like, good for you. You know, you got in on that before it went up to these, you know, these insane prices. And I'm like, you know, so the issue for me is that, you know, for me, Bitcoin is like me playing around the stock market. That's my stock market version. I'm going to go all in on Bitcoin with my stock market, you know, kind of a thing for the most part. Like I've told you guys, I'm not going on major companies. Now, mining companies, you know, like I've mentioned a few times, the junior miners, things like that mine metals, I don't really have a problem going with, you know, a little bit of investment in there in the so-called stock market, just because they're the ones pulling the gold and silver out of the ground. I got a little faith in that, you know, or not a little, I have faith in that. But Elon Musk, 10 years of manufacturing cars that have yet to turn profit, in 2016, 15 and 16 were like the worst years ever for that company. And then Snapchat, and I tell him, I was like, you know, he's like, what do you think about that? I'm like, man, it's crazy. I was like, they came out, you know, they IPO'd for like $36 billion or something. The guy's now all of a sudden a billionaire for creating a phone app that you know, you take a little quick video or picture or something and add some stupid text to it, and the thing goes away. It goes to your people and then it goes away. He goes, yeah, but I mean, there's still room for advertisers on there, you know, for people to watch it. There's still potential advertising revenue that could come in. I said, yeah, I said, you're right. But we have everything else on the internet. We already have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have YouTube, we have so many other things. And I said, you know, with Snap, I said, I'll give you a good example. If, let's say I've got a particular video about gold and silver and, you know, saving your financial livelihood one day or something, you know, why it's important to have physical metal. And I got a bunch of people on Snapchat. Well, I put a video on Snapchat about that. All my people at that current time get my video, and they enjoy it, or they make a decision or something. Like, yeah, I want to do that too. But then the video goes away. It's never to be found again. It's history. I was like, but with YouTube, if I did this particular video 3 years ago, and someone, let's say like yourself, is new into researching some of this stuff or wants to find a little bit more, happens to be searching on YouTube, searches for something that makes my video come up as a option for him to click on, you can go click on it. It's a 3-year-old video, but the information is still there. It's useful today, and of course the ad revenue is there. You know, it's the ad revenue that would pop up on the video from 3 years ago is still going to pop up today, potentially, you know, if someone watched the video today. So I said, you know, I was like, but the core issue here is that the company's been around for a bit, and they're still not profitable, and they said they don't plan to be profitable this year or even next year. I was like, so it's just absurd to me that we have these companies that Wall Street chases and pushes, and it's almost like a pump and dump scheme, but they're not dumping yet. And they should have dumped a long time ago. I was like, you know, and I think the reason for this is because of the Federal Reserve's actions and them giving these big, giant, you know, too big to fail banks all this money, and they're getting loans at, you know, 0 interest rate practically, doing whatever they want with it, and then having to pay back just the money they borrowed without paying the interest on it, because there's no interest really, you know, so little it's not even worth mentioning. Not only that, they can park their money back at the Federal Reserve, or it's technically, I think, through the Treasury, some kind of Treasury window to the Fed, where they can earn interest back on it. So it's like, okay, give me a 0.25% interest rate loan for, you know, $50 million, let's say, or in some of the bank's case, it could be billions, as you know. And most likely is actually, not millions, billions. And then we're going to go repark it, essentially back at the Fed, for a full interest point. So we get to make 3/4 of an interest rate back. on money we borrowed for a quarter. Like, this is absurd. You know, so I'm like, they're buying their stocks back with all this extra money that, of course, they did have to borrow. So I'm like, you know, none of this makes sense. I said, but when you have a Federal Reserve who's owned by these people we just talked about, that's what happens. They're only going to give the money to their banks, their club members, so to speak. And they're going to do these pump and dumps in the market. I was like, you know, and I don't know how long it's going to last. We don't, you know, none of these companies that we just talked about should have a stock price value more than like pennies. These should be like penny stocks. They're not profitable, and they're even saying we don't plan on being profitable for quite some time. But we're worth billions and billions and billions of dollars all of a sudden. And someone mentioned to me through an email, he's like, oh, Joe, well, one of the things helping Elon Musk's company, you know, he's got the SpaceX thing, he's got Tesla and something else. It's like, you know, he gets subsidized like, I forgot what it was, but I went and looked it up. It was either 2-point-something billion per year or 4-point-something billion per year, again, subsidized by the U.S. government. So it's like, oh, well, you got billions coming in. Yeah, why not start a car company and everything else and lose money on it, even though you're charging outrageously high prices for your car? And granted, I get it. You know, these things are self-driving now, and they last a long time on their battery compared to competitors and things. You know, I get it. But I'm not spending $80,000 or even for their low-end model at, you know, $50,000 for a freaking car. It's just, you know, again, it's just kind of absurd to me. But the main point of me doing this video is that what are the chances of me walking into a bank, and you know how I feel about most banks because I expose what they're all about, and I happen to talk to a young man that works there who said, you know, hooking me up with my debit card, fixing that thing, you know, give me a new debit card and setting up my savings account. And we're having this conversation, and he's not struggling at all to maintain the conversation, which means he is searching and researching and, you know, looking for answers for some of this stuff, and he's finding them because he can hold a conversation with me pretty easily, which I thought was fantastic. Because usually people may just sit there and just constantly ask questions because they don't know really what you're saying. They may be interested all of a sudden, but they're not, like, they can't really hold the conversation. You know, Bitcoin, what's a Bitcoin? And what's that? What is it? He knew about all of it. He knew about all of it. So it was a great conversation, you know. And when my wife, if she happens to hear this video, she could say, oh, well, that's what took you so long. You mean you tell me you weren't even waiting in a line? No, actually, I got right in. They saw me right away. And the transaction took about 10 minutes. Yet I was gone for probably, at the bank, sitting there talking with this guy for probably a total of 45 minutes. 10 of which was actually, you know, work, getting it done. But it was a good conversation. So he's like, oh, so what, you know, what's your channel, man? I want to check your channel out. You know, see what kind of videos you're doing every day. I want to, you know, hear some of this stuff. So I'm like, well, here it is, Realist News, JStep4. And I'm like, by the way, you know, because we just delved a tiny bit into some fake news. We would start talking about some of that stuff. And I said, you know, this whole thing recently in Syria, chemical weapons? I said, it's nonsense. Go look up Mannequin Challenge Syria. You'll see for yourself. So I told him, look, there's 2 videos. Whenever you get time, watch these 2 videos. The first one, we need to talk about Sandy Hook. Phenomenal documentary on that whole hoax. Second video, an oldie but very goodie. Loose Change, Final Cut. The 9/11 nonsense, which, I mean, it wasn't nonsense per se, but the story was utter nonsense, which, strangely enough, ties into missing gold and silver, money, banking, once again. Fraud, corruption of epic proportions that was covered up in the rubble of 9/11. But I felt like, you know, if I asked him to see those, if he said, oh, I've seen that one, I would have probably been blown away. Like, oh my gosh, you've already seen one of these? But that stuff, honestly, there's not a lot of people who know a whole lot about those types of documentaries or videos. And you know, it doesn't bother me at all. He's going to go watch them for sure. But it's a good day when you can do a video like, go to a bank and have a conversation like that with a young man who knows a lot about what you're talking about, because he himself is interested for some reason or another. Maybe he sees the stuff online, the news and the what we call media and finance and stocks, all this crap we see on TV as frauds, and this doesn't make sense, and this is, you know, how is this happening? It doesn't make sense. I got to look for other answers elsewhere. And then he found some answers elsewhere. So that's good news. I'm pleased to say I met someone, a young man, that is in his awakening process to everything, but is already well into it. We can say it like that for sure. Which is good, because we're all asleep at some point until we find something that either bothers us, aggravates the hell out of us. Why did that happen? How did that happen? How did I lose my money? How did my 401k? And then we look into it and realize, hey, there's something going on here that I wasn't told about. And I would have expected the media to say this. This is crazy. Which means, why isn't the media doing that? Which makes me want to research that. And the next thing you know, you're going down the rabbit hole of the Matrix. You took the red pill. And once you take the red pill, you're never going back, because you realize how much of life and everything has been a lie, and you don't want to go. Who wants to go back to living lies and everything? You want the truth and nothing but the truth. That's it. So we're on the way to Uncle Pete's. Just got back home, so you're gonna have that video. This video just as a kind of a driving again with J 4 on a Saturday, which I didn't plan on doing these kind of videos in my car, but I love having a conversation like that with a stranger. I love it. And I remember having a similar, not like that, but at the same bank, a customer in line, and we were talking about the housing market, and I brought some statistics up to him. This was over probably a year ago now, and he was a property owner, and I made him think, about the housing and how it's about to go down. It's starting to peak, and it's going to be going down. It's now no longer starting to peak. It has absolutely peaked, and now the only way down is down, or the only way to get past this bubble is down, like all bubbles end. Gotta run. Take care.